Incredible young girl fights against arrogant boxer. What happened next will shock you. Mia stood in the cramped, sunlit attic, surrounded by dusty boxes and forgotten memories. Her fingers traced the outline of a familiar object, a championship belt that once belonged to her father. The weight of it pulled at her heart and spurred a fire within. In the quiet of Maplewood, where dreams seemed taunted by poverty, Mia was about to awaken a passion so deep that it would challenge every limitation placed before her. But then there was the reality of her mother, a nurse working late shifts, stacking her exhaustion against bills that never seemed to end. Mia watched her mum chase dreams for a brighter future. But unbeknownst to her, Mia was swept inside her own aspirations tied to a boxing legacy that didn't include the privilege others boasted. Every punch Freddie, her weathered coach, taught her echoed back to Jake, the town's arrogant champion, who swaggered through the gym with a mockery that stung more than any punch. "Just a girl," he'd quip, his laughter rich and hollow, drawing eyes that feasted on his arrogance. Each jeer pushed Mia into the gym with fierceness. The focus sharpened. She could neither ignore the painful weight of his dismissiveness nor the burning desire to shove past his expectations. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fueled by intensity and self-doubt, Mia paced through her training. Every drop of sweat and every clench of her fist reinforced the cry within her. I won't let Jake's bravado define me. But as the annual community challenge approached, that voice grew tangled with fear. What if she failed? What if her mother found out about her hidden aspirations and worried for her safety? Those thoughts rolled like a dark cloud over her dreams, creating echoes of doubt when she looked in the mirror. Mia's world narrowed to the thrill of the upcoming match and the risks that loomed larger than life. On the day of the fight, the gym felt electric, filled with faces scrutinizing, judging, watching. Breaths caught as she stepped into the ring, every heartbeat a flash of anxiety. Was she about to expose herself to utter humiliation? What if Jake's blows shattered more than her body? Her mother's anxious gaze burned into Mia's back. The pressure creaked beneath her skin, threatening to break the fragile resolve she built through every grueling hour in the gym. And then the bell rang. The rush of adrenaline surged, and the crowd blurred into the background noise of her mind, leaving her alone with her fears and desires. As Jake approached, she met his confidence with fierce determination. She had to fight, not only for herself, but for everyone whose potential lay hidden beneath the weight of judgment. But just as hope sparked, a clumsy misstep scattered her confidence, an injury pulsing through her ankle like a warning bell. Doubts materialized faster than matching punches. She could hear whispers from onlookers. Was this the end? Was this where she accepted that her dreams belonged to the fancy boys with their shiny championship trophies? Could Mia stand tall, or would she sink into the shadows of Jake's smug laughter? Caught between fear and a flickering flame of hope, her next move felt like an impossible choice. Could she rise again, shattering the limits of their small-town perceptions, or would Jake's arrogance crush not just her, but the fire she yearned to embody? In that moment, Mia was teetering on the precipice of history, the world a fragile breath away from knowing whether she would cling to her strength or let it slip away. Mia's heart raced, a wild drum echoing in her ears as she reeled from the jolt of pain radiating through her ankle. The cheers and jeers from the crowd melded into a blurry hum, a backdrop to her awakening realization. This was not merely about fighting Jake. It was about standing firm against everything that had tried to hold her back. In that shared space of uncertainty and adrenaline, she understood this fight went beyond the ring. It was a wrestling match against her own fears. Jake advanced, his confidence oozing with every step, but Mia's focus sharpened. Rather than retreat into the shadows of failure, she found clarity. The legacy behind that championship belt and the dedication of her mother forged an unbreakable link. They defined her strength, interwoven with a determination that felt transformative. She wasn't just fighting back against Jake. She was challenging the limitations imposed by her circumstances and her own self-doubt. With a surge of bravery, Mia shifted her weight firmly onto her uninjured foot. Ignoring the pain, she redirected her focus to the intensity of the fight. She anticipated Jake's next move, an act of arrogance that would leave him vulnerable. When the moment came, she dodged with an agility that surprised her, throwing a precise punch aimed not only at him, but at the very notion of being underestimated. The impact was a shock to them both. Mia's fist made solid contact, sending a jolt up her arm and a wave of exhilaration coursing through her. The crowd erupted, and for a fleeting second their stunned faces mirrored her potential. She was capable. She had just proven it to herself. But Jake recovered quickly, his laughter quickly replaced with anger. "You think that little punch'll make a difference?" His sneer incited fury inside her, igniting a flame that pushed pain aside and propelled her into a rhythm. Each jab and dodge revealed layers of resilience she never knew existed. Mia's mind raced. This wasn't just about physical strength. Strategy was essential. How could she continue to exploit Jake's arrogance while also preserving her own sense of worth? Each round became a lesson. As she danced across the ring, she recalled Freddie's words about feigning vulnerability. It clicked. Embracing her pain would almost seem like admitting defeat. Instead, she would turn it into a tactical advantage. With every punch thrown, her stance shifted from overwhelming doubt to burgeoning confidence. She could see a crack in Jake's facade. His swagger mirrored uncertainty as her blows landed. Each powerful strike felt like shattering glass, reflecting not only her toughness, but also her identity as a fighter. But there was still a deeper battle within her. What if this moment ended in disgrace? The echoes of doubt returned, but Mia clung tighter to her determination. She was no longer just a girl in a small town. She was a force, shaped by challenges and strengthened by the sacrifices of her loved ones. In the final rounds, it became clear that this fight was not about the glory associated with winning, but understanding her own potential. As she squared off against Jake one last time, breathless but determined, she could almost see the walls built around her aspirations begin to crack. Suddenly the bell chimed, drawing the conclusion near. The crowd's momentum swelled with anticipation. Would her newfound strength last until the very end? As she gathered every ounce of energy for one last push, an unforeseen doubt crept in. What if Jake countered her effort with a blow that turned the tide? Mia was on the brink of revealing her true self. Would she claim victory over her fears, or could the arrogance she aimed to dismantle ultimately defeat her? As the air thickened around them, she stood ready, but only time would unveil her greatest challenge yet. Mia's breath came in ragged gasps, her body screaming for respite, yet a different kind of energy coursed through her. The crowd pulsed with excitement. Their anticipation mirrored the tension building within her. She had spent so long underestimating her own strength, letting insecurities dictate her path. Now, with every second ticking away, she had a chance to redefine herself, not only as a fighter, but as a person worthy of respect. She could see Jake's confidence wavering, evident in the way his jaw clenched and uncertainty flickered in his eyes after each of her strikes hit home. The realization that she wasn't merely holding her ground, she was taking control, added fire to her fight. Had he only been a product of circumstance, inflated by the expectations around him? Or was there something deeper, a shared vulnerability hidden beneath his bravado? With a newfound determination, she focused her energy. Steps shifted. Jake lunged forward, his fist aimed at her midsection. An instinctual sidestep had her avoid the hit, but she knew this momentum had to be capitalized on. Gathering all that she had learned, she executed a fluid counterattack, a tactical blend of strategy and raw instinct. Unlike before, each movement felt deliberate and powerful. Mia felt her internal narrative shift. She was not just proving something to Jake, but she was vanquishing her own demons. Uncertainty had loomed large in her mind, a dark cloud hanging over her confidence, but in that ring, she latched onto a sense of purpose. This was her moment of discovery. She had the ability to influence the fight. But this drive was different. It wasn't motivated by anger or revenge. It was about embracing her story, every difficult chapter leading her to this very ring. Each punch she threw was not just an aggressive act, it was a declaration of identity. A reminder that every setback had shaped the resilient woman standing there now. Yet with every act of defiance, a sense of anxiety gnawed at her resolve. What if, even in her moment of strength, she was bound to fail? The spectre of disgrace lurked close, whispering doubts she fought back against with every ounce of willpower. What if she couldn't hold on until the end? As she absorbed the crowd's fervor, she focused on their energy as a shield, a transformative wave that invigorated her spirit. She glanced at Jake again, and his composure cracked further. His hesitation now mirrored her earlier reluctance. It was clear. This was a battle not just between fighters, but between two narratives in conflict. In that pivotal moment, Mia understood. Victory was already reshaping her. Regardless of the fight's outcome, every ounce of bravery displayed was her triumph. By standing her ground, she was reclaiming herself. This pace of self-discovery was tangible. The fight wasn't merely a competition, but rather a conduit for personal revelation. With resolve forged from her journey, she readied for one last rally. Quietly, she then decided on a bold maneuver, something fiery that would either shatter Jake's confidence or solidify her standing as an accomplished fighter. It became clear it would require vulnerability, too. As she steadied herself, she could feel the anticipation coiling around her, tight and electric. She would not merely swing to win, she was going to show him and herself that she was no longer a girl shaped by doubts, but a woman forging her path. With adrenaline surging and uncertainty flickering like dimmed lights, Mia prepared to unleash the next chapter of her story in that ring. What would this final push reveal, not just about her abilities as a fighter, but about the woman she was becoming? Would this be the moment she truly stepped into her own? As she launched into the decisive attack, Mia's clarity sharpened. Every motion, the twist of her hips, the rotation of her shoulders, felt instinctual, like a familiar dance she had practiced countless times in her mind. This was her moment, a crossroads where she could either soar or crash, and the weight of that possibility solidified her focus. Jake charged, but Mia was ready. She shifted her weight, her feet rooted in confidence as she threw a smooth combination of punches. The first hit landed cleanly against his jaw, sending a jolt through him, and she saw it. There was doubt, a flicker that momentarily eclipsed the bravado he had displayed earlier. The second and third strikes were fluid, a rhythm she had crafted over countless hours of training, and with each connection she felt her confidence swell. But even in her exhilaration, a nagging question circled in her mind. Could she sustain this feeling? What if her strength was a temporary illusion, a mere mirage veiling her deeper insecurities? Yet as she pivoted and struck again, fear melted into the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The crowd roared in response, an ebb and flow of energy that matched her own, reassuring her that she belonged there. Mia's internal dialogue shifted. No longer was she just a girl from a small town. She was a warrior in the arena of her own making, and that realization filled her with audacity. She had grown tired of the shadows her doubts cast. They no longer had the power to dictate her worth. Instead, she embraced the narrative of strength and resilience. Jake countered with vigor, his fists swinging with renewed intensity as he sought to regain his composure. But she saw through his attacks. He was trying too hard to reconstruct the confidence shattered by her earlier blows. In this pivotal moment, Mia recognized something darker within him, a fear of losing, not just the fight, but the identity he had built around being the stronger fighter. With her heart racing, she dug deep. This was more than a match. It was a confrontation with the fears that plagued them both. As he lunged, she sidestepped gracefully, instinctively understanding how Jake must feel, teetering on the precipice of self-doubt. It was as though they were mirrors of each other's struggles. With this insight, Mia executed a feint, drawing him into her trap before shifting her weight for a powerful hook that sent him staggering back. The crowd erupted, their roaring approval enveloping her like a protective barrier. It was a visceral reminder of the identity she was forging. Each cheer reinforced her battle cry against self-doubt. Yet, with every ovation came the underlying anxiety of potential failure. What if one moment slipped away, and with it her newly discovered strength? Mia prepared for the final surge. She embraced the vulnerability inherent in this confrontation, not just with Jake, but within herself. The realization that her power would never be absolute only fueled her resolve to share every ounce of it in this fight. Would this final push be enough to entirely reshape their narratives? Could she stand as a symbol not of mere survival, but of vindication for everyone who had ever felt small in a world that favored the strong? As they faced off once again, a silent acknowledgement passed between them. There was a lesson to be learned, and perhaps a redemption in defeat. Mia inhaled deeply as she raised her fists, poised for the next inevitable clash, aware that the confrontation was as much about reclaiming her life story as it was about overcoming Jake. What would this ultimate moment unravel about the vastly complex journey they were both on? The answer lay just a breath away. Mia steadied her breath and focused on the electricity pulsing in the air around her. Each heartbeat resonated with adrenaline and raw determination, forming a symphony of resolve that drowned out doubt. As Jake recovered and repositioned himself, she thought about how every punch was not just a physical blow, but a statement, a defiance against the self-doubt that had shadowed her for years. With the crowd still roaring, an unexpected clarity enveloped her. The fight transcended mere competition. It was a confrontation with her deepest insecurities, an opportunity to redefine not just who she was, but who she could become. Jake was a formidable opponent, yes, but he represented the doubts that had kept her caged. Each well-placed punch now felt like a chisel chipping away at the stone facade built by fear. When Jake lunged forward again, this time she didn't sidestep. Instead, she embraced the incoming strike, bracing her shoulder. Their bodies collided with the force of two trains meeting on the same track. Pain jolted through her, but she immediately recognized it as a catalyst. This was where growth happened, right here, in the moment of impact. As she adjusted, she wasn't merely reacting. She was responding with intention. A quick jab to his ribs followed by a swift uppercut felt both liberating and exhilarating. The satisfaction of seeing him falter solidified the belief deep within her. She could face him without retreating, could confront pain without caving to it. But then the weight of her journey pressed down. What if this was just the beginning? The idea of victory now loomed larger than just this fight. It represented a monumental shift in her life, a declaration of her power and agency in all aspects, not just here, in the ring. With each exchange, she pulled deeper into her core, systematically excavating layers of hidden strength. The idea that Jake was not just an adversary but also an essential part of this journey crystallized in her mind. Every strike he landed illuminated a part of herself she hadn't yet confronted. The instincts of defeat, the familiar pull of choosing the easier path. Yet with every jolting realization, a sense of peace swept through her. Vulnerability was not her enemy. It was a necessary component of resilience. The crowd, still adding fuel to her fire, phased into the background as her world distilled down to her and Jake, two warriors carving their identities. But Mia was no longer just a fighter. She was an artist, painting her own destiny. The fight signified the chaos of transformation. It morphed her weaknesses into sources of strength. She was not just striking back, she was sculpting her narrative. As she pivoted for another round, a new surge of confidence radiated through her. She embraced the realization that success did not require perfection, only courage. Mia knew what lay ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet in that uncertainty she found clarity. It was time to decide whether she would merely fight or seize the moment to redefine everything. When Jake suddenly charged again, something pivotal shifted within her. This fight had transitioned from survival to something grander, an awakening. She was no longer afraid of the fight itself, nor the outcome. With a fierce glint in her eyes, she braced for the next wave. Could this encounter catalyze the reawakening of not just herself, but also of Jake? In the depths of that shared struggle was redemption not just for her, but for them both. It was a question that lingered in the air, tantalizingly close, yet out of reach, as she prepared for the final push, feeling the ground shift beneath her. What would she discover about herself in those final moments? The answer awaited just beyond the next clash. The roar of the crowd morphed into a distant echo, swallowed by Mia's focus. The air was thick with anticipation, electrifying her core as she squared her shoulders. This was no longer a matter of simply fighting, it was about realization and liberation. Each punch wasn't just a rebuttal to Jake, but a statement, an affirmation of her own potential. As Jake lunged forward, the world around her ignited with the intensity of their struggle. Mia sidestepped his attack, the adrenaline flowing in her veins like wildfire. The sound of her heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of their movements, painting a picture of fluidity and grace. She was not simply defending against Jake, she was dancing with her fears, leading him into uncharted territory. In a split second, a thought flickered in her mind. What if her punches weren't just aimed at Jake, but also at her own limitations? What if, in this brawl, she was breaking the chains that bound her to self-doubt? With renewed purpose, she unleashed a barrage of strikes, each one echoing her inner battle, challenged the voices that insisted she wasn't enough. Mia registered the shift in Jake's demeanor. He seemed puzzled, maybe even intimidated by her newfound assertiveness. Each exchange locked them further into the psychological fray, where uncertainty reigned supreme. It wasn't merely a contest of strength. It was a fight for authenticity. She had entered this arena as a girl, haunted by self-criticism, but she was evolving into a formidable contender, one who started to believe in her right to exist unapologetically. With every jab, the confidence she wielded felt like a sledgehammer against the fragile walls built by her past. She remembered the countless times she had doubted herself, the moments when she felt invisible in a crowd, as if her existence was a mistake. In this chaotic dance of combat, she was reclaiming her narrative step by determined step. But with triumph brewed a quiet fear lurking just beneath the surface. What if she won? What would that mean for her life beyond this fight? Would her emergence as a powerhouse fracture the expectations others had of her? Or would it solidify her place in a new reality crafted by her own dreams and aspirations? A powerful hook of doubt surged within her, tempting her to retreat into the familiar cloak of insecurity. Yet, as Jake attempted to counter her latest flurry, she found clarity in her purpose. Victory could mean many things, a celebration, an affirmation, but more importantly, an invitation to redefine her identity. This was what she had been waiting for, the chance to not only face her adversary in front of her, but to confront the ghosts that had tormented her for years. Mia's resolve solidified as she embraced vulnerability. It wasn't weakness, it was courage, an innate power she realized she could channel. She leaned into that discomfort and found strength in her own fragility, transforming it into resilience. Jake charged again, his fists filled with frustration as he attempted to regain control. But this time Mia was ready. She stood firm, a pillar of grit and purpose. With a deep inhalation, she observed his movements, calculating her response. The connection they shared, their conflict, was metamorphosing into something intricate, a dual dance meant for discovery and reflection. Who were they, really, outside of this fight? And what were they capable of in a world unshackled from the expectations pressing down on them? As she prepared to counter, the thrill of revealing her authenticity surged through her. This battle was about more than survival. It was about embracing the fullness of her identity. A moment suspended in time, she could either step into her power or let it slip away. In those fleeting seconds, as their eyes locked, a deeper truth unfolded. The next punch was not just against Jake, it was a strike against everything that had held her back. What uncharted territory would she find once this moment proved decisive? As she pressed forward, ready to seize her fate, a new inquiry formed in her heart. Was this the pivotal moment that could redefine both of their lives? The answer teetered on the precipice of impact, waiting for the final clash. In that split second, time stretched, and Mia felt the fierce pulse of determination flooding her limbs. With every passing moment, her hesitations receded like a tide, revealing hidden treasures, truths long submerged. This fight was no longer about defeating Jake. It was about confronting the very essence of who she had been conditioned to be. What had once been familiar, the fear of judgment, of failure, was giving way to a burgeoning empowerment she had scarcely begun to fathom. Mia shifted her weight, executing a swift pivot that sent her foot sweeping across the ground, blending grace with ferocity. The world around her faded into insignificance. The spectators were shadows, their cheers only echoes lost in the cacophony of her heart racing with purpose. As Jake attempted to close the gap, his fists still wielding frustration, she countered with a calculated urgency, her strike precise. This was no mere reflex, it was the embodiment of intention. With every punch she landed, she felt strings of her identity unraveling. Each connection was not just against Jake's body, but against the narratives that others had imposed upon her. The limitations she felt shackled to began to dissolve, and in their place emerged a sense of agency she hadn't dared believe possible. This was liberation, raw and fervent. But as the intensity of their conflict escalated, so too did the shadows of her doubts. They crept back, whispering insidiously. Was she truly ready to embrace this new chapter, to accept the mantle of strength? The worry gnawed, unsettling her focus and bubbling to the surface. She'd never been cast in this role. What if she faltered? Jake thrust his fist forward, fueled by a display of desperation. Mia barely dodged the blow, the rush of air brushing past her cheek like a fleeting memory. In his eyes, she saw not just anger, but fear. Fear that this match strayed beyond the physical, that it could expose truths he, too, desperately sought to conceal. Noticing his distraction, a spark ignited within her. She could exploit this. In the midst of the chaos, she could begin to shift their dynamic, not as a simple fighter, but as an architect of their narrative. With renewed focus, she began to dictate the rhythm of their exchange, wielding her experience as a weapon. As Mia danced around Jake, she felt the electric charge of possibility surge through her. With each successful maneuver, she traded her mortality for tenacity, a catalyst propelling her forward. No longer was she aiming to survive. She was aiming to thrive, to own this moment. But triumph, she reminded herself, came with responsibility. Winning this fight was one thing, but how would she carry herself afterward? A part of her envisioned celebrating unbounded, while another questioned if she would slip into complacency, returning to the shadows from where she'd emerged. This next step hinged not just on physical prowess, but on her commitment to growth that extended beyond the ring. With one last fierce jab, she landed squarely on Jake's jaw, and in that moment the air seemed to crack with tension. He staggered back, and she felt the swell of empowerment rising within her, quaking her foundations, the realization that she could fully embrace who she was meant to be. Just as swiftly, however, a creeping concern emerged. Would she still belong to those she had left behind? Would these changes fracture relationships she held dear, or could they evolve? As time ticked down, Mia's heart raced, caught in a visceral conflict of anticipation and dread. What awaited her on the other side of this fight? The conclusion was imminent, but its implications spiraled like an unpredictable storm, leaving her to confront the vast unknown. In that heartbeat of truth, she wondered, if she emerged victorious, would she be ready to accept the transformation, not just of herself, but of her entire world? And as the final bell loomed ever closer, she could feel the pull of destiny beckoning, teasing her with the possibilities yet to unfold. Would she embrace this new reality, or would she retreat once more into the safety of her comfort zone? Mia's punch connected with a resounding echo, reverberating not just within the confines of the arena, but deep within her psyche. The crowd gasped, and she could feel every pair of eyes converged on her, holding their breath. In that instant, she realized this was no longer about Jake or the fight at all. This was about her transformation, her definitive leap into a realm where she controlled the narrative of her own life. As Jake staggered back, the flood of adrenaline surged through her veins, yet beneath that electrifying rush lay a simmering anxiety. Winning this match meant something more profound, and she had to confront the heavy proposition that loomed ahead. If she triumphed, what would that mean for the person she had always been? Would victory breed growth, or would it fracture the very foundation of her relationships? The seconds ticked away, and she felt a tightening grip on her heart. She had to shake off the encroaching fear, or it could trap her in a cycle of self-doubt. While Jake regained his footing, Mia seized the moment to perform a swift series of feints. The lightness in her movements was exhilarating, but with each dodge and jab, the weight of expectation bore down on her. She needed a strategy, not just against Jake, but for her own future. With every strike, she reflected on her past, her insecurities flashing before her eyes like those distant echoes from the crowd. Every time someone had doubted her, every silly comment about her ambitions falling short, those voices made up her internal landscape. But now she could rewrite that landscape. Stepping into this new identity, Mia felt the narrative gradually shift. She was no longer just a fighter against Jake. She was a warrior against the self-imposed limitations suffocating her potential. In that moment of clarity, her next moves crystallized. Instead of merely responding to Jake's aggression, she would dictate the terms of engagement. Mia moved in closer, allowing a calculated vulnerability to draw him in, a tactic to exploit his own fear. As he attempted a wild swing, she ducked under, striking a clean uppercut that sent him reeling again. The crowd erupted, their voices a euphoric blend of disbelief and excitement. With every triumphant cheer, a piece of her uncertainty shattered, and the freedom to embrace her potential became tangible. But victory still felt precarious. What if the triumph was tainted with isolation? She envisioned the conversation she would need to have, the supportive friends who had watched her timid progress, and the uncertainty that they too might feel left behind in her wake. The personal connections she cherished hung in delicate balance between her evolving identity and their expectations. With renewed resolve, she executed a series of rapid jabs, feeling the pulse of power coursing through her. She would not compromise the authenticity of her relationships, nor would she let fear dictate her path forward. With every punch, she reaffirmed her commitment to honor those who loved her, creating space for both her growth and the bonds she valued. With only seconds left in the round, she prepared for a final onslaught, ready to finalize her path. Would victory solidify her identity, or would it push her away from the very connections that had defined her? In that climactic moment, a sudden realization hit her. Victory wasn't just about the win, it was about the journey she'd choose afterward. The time for hesitance was gone. She had the chance to blend her past with this new existence and support her friends in their own growth alongside hers. As the final bell rang, Mia braced herself for what came next. Would she step boldly into this new chapter of her life, or would the shadows of doubt pull her back toward the familiar? In the aftermath of the fight, one thing was clear. Her true battle was just beginning. The bell's clang faded into a stark silence, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of sweat and resolve. As the adrenaline began to ebb, Mia staggered backward, her legs shaky. She had landed the decisive blows, but now she stood at a crossroads of identity and self-acceptance, grappling with the weight of what lay ahead. Jake was reeling, the dazed look in his eyes a reflection of her own whirlpool of thoughts. Victory! It was more than that now. It was a transformation that threatened to uproot everything she thought she knew about herself. Each heartbeat echoed the possibility of stepping beyond her previous limits, yet that same prospect loomed like a challenge from her past, brushing against the familiar insecurities that whispered she wasn't worthy. As she caught her breath, she surveyed the crowd, faces etched with admiration and disbelief. Part of her craved their validation, yet another part recoiled at the thought of their expectations. What would it mean for her friends, those who provided the warmth of support throughout her journey? Would they now feel overshadowed by her seemingly overnight success? The more she mulled it over, the clearer it became. Rather than distance herself from them, she needed to create a bridge connecting her growth to their journeys. This newfound clarity fed a burning resolve. She had fought a battle in the ring, but an internal struggle awaited her in the realm beyond. As she left the arena, exhaustion seeped into her bones, battling with the pride swelling in her chest. The moment she stepped through the entryway, she locked eyes with her closest friends gathered just outside. Their smiles felt like tendrils of light reaching for her. Yet an unsettling question flickered at the edges of her mind. Would they see the renewed Mia, or cling to the version they once knew? Mia took a deep breath, determined not to let her fears dictate her actions. "I did it," she said, the words spilling out before she could second-guess them. "I won the fight." As she spoke, she felt the tension of expectations collide with the vulnerability of sharing her success. Would they embrace this growth or cling to the shadows of their earlier insecurities? One of her friends, Carly, stepped forward, eyes glimmering with pride. "I've always known you could do it, Mia," she said, her voice warm, yet threaded with caution. "But what about—" "It doesn't change who I am," Mia interrupted, her tone steadier than she felt. "I want to grow, but I need you to understand it's not about rising above. It's about lifting each other up." In that moment she recognized what she truly needed. A candid conversation about evolving without losing the threads of their bonds. As they gathered in a huddle, her friends listened intently as she shared her fears, her aspirations, and the jarring realization that success could fracture or fortify their relationships. Each voice contributed to the dialogue, weaving a tapestry of honesty. Unbeknownst to Mia, she had already begun to mend the tentative thread between her past and the future, knitting herself into the fabric of their friendship with newfound strength. Amidst the exchange, a flicker of doubt still gnawed. What if this support faltered as she ventured further into unknown territories? The prospect of balancing her ascent with ongoing connections weighed heavily on her. Was it possible to grow yet remain grounded? As uncertainty loomed, an opportunity presented itself, an invitation to another match, one that held significance beyond proving herself again. This could solidify her resolve, her place, not just as a fighter, but within her circle, transforming her journey into one not solely of individual glory, but of shared triumph. With the decision dangled before her, uncertainty churned in her stomach. Would she accept the challenge, risking solitude for the chance to strengthen her bonds? The time had come to face not only her new identity, but also the potential repercussions of her growing ambitions. Would this next step elevate those around her, or would it fracture the very connections she sought to protect? Mia stood on the canvas, body aching but heart aflame, as the realization of her victory began to settle within her. The cheers of the crowd faded into a barely audible rush, and the adrenaline that had fueled her remained, reminding her of the journey that had led her to this precipice of self-discovery. The championship belt hung heavy around her waist, more than just a symbol of conquest. It was the embodiment of a rebellion against every barrier that once constrained her. As she looked around, the world sharpened into focus. Her friends' faces beamed with pride, their eyes glistening with admiration. In that moment, Mia understood that this win extended beyond her own efforts. It represented an awakening, a challenge to everyone, especially herself, to rise above the doubts and shadows of their past. But triumph often brings a torrent of questions. Would her victory create a divide, an unbridgeable gap between her previous self and the girl she was destined to become? Would her friends still accept her, or would they feel eclipsed by her newfound strength? "Mia!" Carly rushed forward, breaking through the throng. "You did it! I knew you would!" Her warmth washed over Mia, grounding her, reminding her of the support that had always been her haven. "I couldn't have done it without you," Mia replied, her voice trembling slightly. "You all made this possible." But there was an unspoken truth that lingered, like the residue of sweat from the match. It was time to confront the question she had been dancing around. How would their relationships adapt to this transformation? Gathering her friends, Mia closed off the space outside the gym where they could talk. "I want you all to know that this isn't just about winning for me. I've been given this opportunity to prove something not just to myself, but to everyone who thinks they aren't enough." A silence enveloped them, a shared understanding that resonated deeper than words. Carly, with her eyes wide with hope and unease, nodded slowly. "We've always believed in you. But what if we're on different paths now? What if we can't keep up with you?" The question hung heavily, but Mia was ready. She had fought against not only Jake that day, but also the part of her that clung to insecurity. "We can't let fear dictate our journey. We can grow together. I want us all to embrace this change, to share our wins and losses." Her conviction sparked a sense of belonging, igniting the same fire that fueled her victory in the ring. Over the next few weeks, Mia tapped into her potential and the legacy tied to her father's championship belt. She began organizing training sessions for her friends, inviting them to explore their own possibilities in the sport. Together, they created an environment of mutual encouragement, each supporting one another's aspirations the way they once supported her. Mia's evolution unfolded seamlessly as she watched those around her thrive. They discovered their strengths, not as a cohort overshadowed by her triumph, but as a collaborative team that challenged each other in ways they had never anticipated. It became clear that her journey was not just individual, but a shared rise, a testament that every one of them could leave their insecurities behind and step into their power. By the time Mia entered the next competition, she didn't merely see herself as a contender. She recognized that each participant represented a journey of transformation. This match was an affirmation of her growth, and her heart soared as she smiled, knowing her friends stood behind her, ready to support her yet again, their faces beaming pride and loyalty. The bell rang, but within that sound lay a symphony of acceptance, resilience, and unity. Mia stepped into the ring, not as the girl who had once been defined by doubt, nor as the girl simply fighting to prove herself. She entered as a champion of her own story, one that was woven together with those she loved and uplifted, embracing every moment on this path. As the crowd roared once again, she was aware that she was no longer alone. Mia had embraced not just her power, but had imparted it to others, a legacy of resilience and community created in the wake of her fight against Jake. The weight of the belt was a reminder not just of victory, but of connection. This was not an ending, but a new beginning, a moment pregnant with possibilities as she turned to face her future. Mia had conquered her fears, and in doing so had also ignited the potential within others. It was a victory without borders, a fight that had broken down walls rather than building them. "Let's go!" she shouted, that spirited fire sparking anew in her chest. With every ounce of her being, she was no longer just a girl, but an unwavering force, ready to take on the world. If you've been moved by Mia's journey of resilience and self-discovery, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for her story and many more like it. Leave a like now. Every click helps us reach more hearts just like yours. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who greatly need to see how incredible personal growth can be. Comment your thoughts and theories about Mia's journey. Join the family. Your voice matters.